Okay, I guess we can get started because we're all here and it's the appointed hour. So this is a regular meeting of the Old Lyme Affordable Housing Commission. It's Wednesday, February 15th, 2023. And in attendance, we have Amy Hosier, Lori Walker, Jen Miller, John Coughlin, myself, Michael Foliano. So we can move into the agenda. So the first item up tonight is election of officers, and as backdrop to that, last month there was a round of appointments done, so which resulted in Jen being reappointed for a 3-year term ending in 2026, Anthony being reappointed or appointed to a full term now, again ending in 2026. Amy was appointed to fill the vacancy left by Karen Winters as a regular member through 2026, which leaves myself and John, whose term expires on January 31st, 2024, and also the vacancy, the vacant alternate seat expires in 2024, and then Bill Belluzzi's regular seat expires in 2025. So neither Bill nor Anthony is going to be joining us tonight. My instinct is to have election of officers when everybody's here.
Yes.
So
I concur.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Good. Without objection, I will defer that until we have a whole commission in attendance, and we can do election of officers then.
Sounds good.
And in the meantime, Jen, if you're willing to carry on in your role,
Yep.
and I will carry on in mine on an interim basis until we get to that. There's no set expiry on the terms. It's just by convention we do it once a year after the appointments are made.
Great.
Okay. So number 2 is deferred. Public comment. There's no one here with us in the meeting hall, and I believe you're the only one on the line, John. But I'll pause to see if there's anyone else on the telephone line that would like to make public comment. Hearing none, I will close public comment and move on to item 4, correspondence. I only have one item to report, which is our old friend George Clow, back from the first days of the committee, has just sent me a note calling attention to one of the articles that I had sent to you all, the one from the Hartford Courant, which cited some of the legislative activity. So he's still out there minding this area of the business and staying in touch, which is very nice to see. Anyone else with correspondence to report? That was all I had.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have nothing.
All right then, we'll move on to approval of the minutes. So the first is the meeting of December 14th, 2022. And for discussion purposes, I'll look for a motion to approve. Actually, let me pause for a moment. Without objection, I'm just going to seat Lori as a voting member tonight, so we have a full complement.
Okay.
And if you'll give me one sec. Yeah, we're going to need a motion to accept.
Motion to accept.
Okay, from John. Second.
Second, Jen.
Jen.
Amy.
Okay.
3. Sorry. Oh, you did. Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Hey, any discussion? Let me just look at the, let me see who was here for that. I got to get this thing. I'm going paperless tonight completely on my laptop, and it's so far it's being a little rough on me, but I'll have it up in a sec. There it is, 22, 14, 12, 14. So John, you were not at that meeting, and Jen, you were not
Correct.
at that meeting. So it's up to me and Amy at this point, and Lori. Lori, you were there. We were all three with you.
Yes.
So, all in favor of approving the minutes? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Minutes are approved. Okay, next up is the minutes of January 18th.
Do we want to add anything under development opportunities that we talked about, Tom Larson, or just let it go?
I think, is it noted that Tom's in there? He was
Okay.
noted in the December minutes that was noted in the December minutes when he actually joined it. But if you have a suggestion, Lori, for where to include it?
Nope, that's fine. Just wanted to make sure
It's in, yeah.
it doesn't feel neglected.
Yeah, it's in the December minutes, definitely. Okay, further discussion? Okay. Promotion to approve then.
I'll make it a motion to approve.
Jen, second.
Second.
I'll second.
Osher, beat you to the punch, John. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Very good. Minutes approved. Thank you, folks. Okay. Moving to updates, general updates. Not a lot to report there. The town has a new website. You've noticed there was a transition done at high noon on Valentine's Day. It's not a massacre because our website made it safely. There's one or two typos that we have to correct, but Katie's doing a great job, and we'll get those straightened out. One thing of note, our contact link is missing for right now, but we should have that back up by the end of the week.
That goes to you, right?
That goes to the affordable housing town email address, which I look at. The one for the old committee is still there, but the commission's is not, so that probably got mixed up, but we'll get that straightened out, and it'll be quick. Other than that, I went through the appointments that were done, and the rest we can cover under the work streams. So, with that, I'll move into McCulloch Family Open Space. I do have an update on that. So since we last met, which was in January, I had conversations with Tim and correspondence with Sussman Shapiro, Jack Collins, about getting the legal opinions we were seeking in three key areas. One is technically what has to happen to exercise the option so we can be definitive about that, to divide off those properties for affordable housing. The second was the process for and any guardrails or constraints or requirements for applying our ARPA grant to the project. And Tim has some ideas on that, but that's just that whole area of how do we use the $150? If we engage a third-party partner, how do we direct the $150,000 that was granted to essentially the town through us, the Affordable Housing Commission? How do we apply that? There are mechanisms to do it. We just have to figure out, how do we dot the I's, cross the T's, and actually get that to work. And the third area was the requirements for and the general guidance on the process for using an RFQ or an RFP as part of the process to seek and identify a partner for that. So that went off to Sussman Shapiro, and Attorney Mike Carey was assigned to us. And I spoke with him, and he's working on it. He has close contact with Rich Cody, who actually did the work with the Open Space Commission to make the acquisition of the open space in the first place. So he's familiar with the documents and at least the intent, if not the letter of what was done. So he set an expectation with me that we would hear back with some opinions, and it will probably result in a meeting with myself and Tim sometime by the end of next week.
Oh, good.
So we're making progress there. We're on the case. In a brief conversation, not really a brief, but in a conversation with Mike that didn't get into all the details, just kind of staking out what we were trying to do. He didn't see any showstoppers. It was just a matter of figuring out what the letter of all the documents implied and required us to do, or things that we were constrained from doing. But so far, it looks like the option can be exercised. That was assumed. We will be able to apply the $150,000, and we'll wait. We'll sort out. There are two levels of considerations around the RFP, RFQ. That's just sort of the general desirability to do it, and then there is specific guidance at the state and federal level around ARPA. So Mike's very familiar with that. Mike actually worked with the ARPA committee. So he was.
So in the RFP or RFQ or P, we would put in the specific stipulations around the ARPA money.
Yeah, and it would go to the process around that too, and how we track it, and just a mechanism for how the funds flowed.
Okay.
So, but again, there are certainly details that we will be bedeviled by, but there were no showstoppers identified, at least in the first round of conversations. So, should keep moving. So that's good news. Questions, discussion on that?
So if we think that by the end of next week they'll have some response or whatever, a response enough.
Guidance for us, yeah.
Guidance, I guess you would call it, okay. So do you think maybe at the next meeting then we could do the draft RFP and take a look at that? Okay.
Yeah, I have some notes already ready to go on that once we figure out what form and direction it's got to take.
All right, because just thinking backwards, from 2024, with the ARPA funds and the timeline on the Cullen property?
2024.
20. That's good. So we need to kind of get on with it.
Yes, we do.
So I'm thinking, what do we, RFPs, John, maybe you know this, usually we send them out for 2 or 3 weeks?
It was 30 days. When we did for the consultants for our grant, I think we had up to 30 days.
Yeah, it's usually 30 days, and it's fairly quick turnaround.
Are there town restrictions on contracts?
There's town guidelines on it, but not many. We learned that they were very, very few. There's no real formal process for it. It's pretty much ad hoc. So.
And you could do an RFP for 10 days if you wanted.
Yep. And it may be an RFQ because of the nature of this, which is not sort of bidding on a project. It's stating qualifications to do an acquisition. So.
Same thing.
Yeah. I think other than the ARPA aspect of it, which is likely to impose some requirements, I think we've got pretty broad discretion on how that goes.
Okay. Good.
And we'll learn more about that next week, what the ARPA means. Okay, so
with the ARPA funds,
John?
Wouldn't it be cleaner to have them buy the land and then you'd have just a little bit of money going over to the developer?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's various ways you could do it. The first thing we do before we figure out how we're going to do is what we need to do and what the constraints are. There may be some things we have to do or we can't do. So once we figure out where the guardrails are, we're confident we'll find a way to get between them.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's great.
Because there'll be there are likely to be some tracking requirements for the grant.
Well, it's federal money, so it very much is going to be tracked by all.
Yep. Okay.
And that's another thing that we want to make sure we don't lose sight of with this whole process, is that we want lots of visibility or so people can look into it. It's very, very transparent.
Yes.
With how everything transpired.
Absolutely. Consistent with everything else we're doing. Couldn't agree more, John.
Yeah. We've done a great job so far, so.
Okay, if there's no more on that, Bill is not going to be with us tonight, but he did send me an email update, so I will deliver that update in his stead. I won't be able to answer many questions on it, but here's what Bill sent me. He has contacted the person Karen recommended for a first home buyers program. His name is Keith Turner. He has not heard back, but hopes to have information by the March meeting. He is willing to write a piece for each of the 4 Old Lyme Events publications that will be published this year.
Oh, good.
And says we should have something in every issue, which I agree. And he is working on material to update the website with affordable housing news from our state and region regarding the legislative initiatives and appropriate activities in the region. And is prepared to publicize more on the McCulloch Initiative as it becomes available. So that's his update.
He's a independent guy, Keith?
I saw Keith Turner today at a real estate council meeting, and he was there, and they even kind of came in late, and they said, oh, Keith Turner just had a baby and not getting much sleep. His dad was Phil Turner, who, going way back, was a really respected mortgage guy, and his son Keith has taken over. So I can't remember the name of his company, but he's definitely affiliated with the company. But he is respected, and he'd be a good guy to do a first-time homebuyer seminar.
Awesome. Okay. Cool.
And because Bill is going solo on this work stream right now, I offered to help him with some of the writing he's doing. So I'll partner with him ad hoc.
Are we doing a postcard? Community outreach, sorry.
The community outreach, we don't have plans for a postcard currently. We had plans for a postcard where we were going to use some of the residual from our technical assistance grant, but that expired, and we did an events article instead.
Okay.
With pretty much the same content. So for the time being,
that's fine.
I think
I agree.
Yeah, I don't want to put words in Bill's mouth, but I think we'll use the quarterly events to just kind of put out a pulse and put something in, and we have something very specific we want to bring the community's attention to, then we can pay for a direct mail to put it in their mailbox and make sure that we reach everybody directly with a very specific, concise message, not just sort of the general updates.
Good.
Okay, so that was community engagement. So I'll throw you the ball, Jen, for funding and partnering communities.
So Anthony and I haven't connected verbally, face-to-face, or whatever you call it, online, but texting, we're doing quite well. And he's out today. He's on a trip or something. So, but anyhow, the only thing that we have right now is focusing on the funding for 2 things. One is there's the Yes in Our Backyard grant, which is basically a grant that the states have been allocated to appropriate to efforts which would relieve the burden of the legalese, if you will, of like looking at ADUs or looking at zoning, things like that. So it wouldn't be directly tied to affordable housing as far as building housing, but it would be, from what we understand, would be tied to getting the over the hurdles of getting to that point. Not sure if we're going to need that for our zoning board and whatever, because we're kind of making progress with the ADUs as it is right now.
Based on what I see going on with the proposed zoning changes for Halls Road and Lime Street, not-for-profits, I think we probably need all the professional help we can get.
Yeah. So in my mind, and we haven't looked further into it, but it would go towards those types of things. So it would be legal support, basically, for getting a foot in the door, if you will, to have the conversation, anyways, with any homeowners / the zoning board / whatever. And I know that there's good traction in the community for wanting to have ADU restrictions sort of lifted, and people, generalizing, but from what I've heard, more people would offer up places for accessory dwellings if they could, and could do that. So I had thought originally, a couple of years ago, I had thought the opposite, that everybody wanted to hide them because too many zoning restrictions, too many compliance issues, too many regulatory issues, and they're getting cash, so they don't have to report it.
Yeah.
So, but on the other hand, I've heard more lately that it's more like, well, we would do it if we could, but we can't. So, so I'm not sure where that stands as far as the old Lyme zoning and appropriations and things like that go, but if we could push that forward, I think there's a good handful of people in the community that would support it.
As a realtor, Lyme allows them. Lyme has very good zoning for legal.
Yes,
Very
or
permissive.
legally.
As opposed to, like, as a realtor in Old Lyme, you don't, advertise that it's
Right. Yeah.
an accessory apartment.
Accessible by a fire escape.
So it would be nice if they changed that.
Which we'll get to
With the wood burning
when Amy and I are up next, but for these purposes, I would say, and Amy, check me on this, you definitely want to apply for some funding
Yeah.
for technical or legal support to do this, because zoning changes are for ADUs,
What do you, like, I
multifamily.
can't, like, envision that, I don't want it to be kind of like us against them kind of thing, but how would we envision incorporating that funding into supporting us, not against the zoning board, but like in conjunction with the zoning board to change those things?
Well, there's two parts to it. So one is, and I actually had a very open and good conversation with Paul Orzel, who's the chair of the zoning commission. So they typically don't self-initiate zoning change.
Yeah.
Sometimes they will, but they do adjudicate. So there is a bit of a line between the role of the zoning commission as the adjudicator of these things and the role of someone coming in to propose
So
them.
proposal will need to be made, yeah,
So,
okay.
so I think we're going to maintain an open dialogue with zoning as we tell them what we want to do and what direction we want to take, and we'll get whatever guidance or experience they're prepared to give us. But I think when it comes down to actually coming up with a proposal and potentially regulatory language, we'll be able to effectively use that, and it wouldn't represent any sort of adversarial relationship. Right. It would be everybody actually staying in their lane and doing what they're chartered to do, rather than
so I would propose that we go after some monies for that from this particular grant, which seems like, on the face of it, super hyper language, that's what it's for. But once, devil's in the details as far as federal grants go. So, if it's a 45-page application, that's fine. I've done those before too, but but we can see what it is. But so why don't Tony and I then we'll go forward with trying to craft up a paragraph or two that states what the reason for application would be, which I think is the first blurb that we need to fill out.
And Amy and I can work with you on that, sort of from the policy and regulatory angle, because we're actually working on and having the conversations about the accessory apartment ones right now. That's
and talking with some of the communities too. It's interesting. Effective the 20th of January, Westbrook, I was meant to make copies of this, has adopted a specific ordinance for that, and they've looked very carefully at the sizes of the units and the appearance of what those units would be, which I think is an important thing to have.
Yeah,
we do.
Appearance.
And we've met with Torrance Downs from Rivercog, and he's given us some sample stuff and some areas of our ordinance to look at. So we kind of have the ideas and the framework, so it would be perfect to have somebody who's done this before take the pieces and put it together into a coherent proposal and and some regulatory language that we could actually propose.
So I'll get with Anthony, we'll download the app and then figure out what kind of information we need, specifically around ADUs, but more broadly around, maybe some of the things you're doing with Soundview or Shoreline.
Shoreline Gateway,
Gateway and things like that, but specifically around ADUs.
Which is the first stop, but there'll be others. If you look at our plan, opening up some more opportunities for multifamily is in there, and the mixed use. So yeah, I think we could. Okay. I really think this would be useful for us.
Okay. Yeah.
Hopefully, hopefully we'll be competitive.
Person. Yeah. Great. Okay, good. And maybe this person from Sussman, Mike. Mm-hmm. Is he maybe more generally knowledgeable about all things housing, or is he more of a
No, he's going to be,
public policy.
Maybe somebody else in their firm, but it might not be him. But it doesn't matter. Once we get the funding, we'll find the right people to do it.
Yeah, there's a number of companies, like Colliers International is very into the affordable housing network from an apartment standpoint, not from a purchasing standpoint, but like Hope, they're kind of, they have a nonprofit arm that basically does all kind of affordable housing stuff. So there are other realtors out there that have these types of programs going on. So,
Rivercog might have leads for us.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm talking about this is more California, Arizona, but so I think that in this part of the state, find somebody that has that kind of foundation. So that was our first, one of our first goals was the Yes in My Backyard fund. And then I think we want to craft a second goal, but it would be more around we were thinking more the multifamily complexes, so having maybe something, we're just throwing this out there just for conversation, maybe around like when there's certain areas where if they build a development, then a certain piece has to be set aside for affordable, or a certain percentage of it, things like that. Developers can do it on their own, obviously. Some of them do, some of them don't. But there are towns that legislate that it be done. So if they build a 30-unit apartment building, then some of them are affordable. And it's more of a mandate than a nice to have kind of thing. So that could be another thing. I'm not sure Old Lyme is ready for that yet, but
Jen, I want to remind you, this is Old Lyme,
I know. We're not in Salem.
Between no water, no sewage, I don't think we can get that many 30 rooms.
The oil spill from the middle school is leaking all over the town. Gotta fight that first. Yeah, but anyhow, so I think that there's other things that we could pursue after that, but from a development funding standpoint, I think the most reachable one is this current grant and the flurry of grants that are coming out from the Biden administration on those kinds of things. So.
I realize as I'm looking at the agenda, I skipped over policy and regulatory, which was me and Amy.
Yeah.
So we'll rewind on that. So anything more for Jen?
Nope. Anthony
Questions,
and I are good.
Discussion for Jen?
Nope.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good. I think that you'd be able to put that. We'll need that grant, I think.
Yeah, we're gonna get it. I have high confidence in that.
Good. All right. So I'll defer to Amy in just a sec, but we're working in 3 areas on policy and regulatory. So the first is the accessory dwelling regulations. Old Lyme, we've discussed this before, Old Lyme has some of the most restrictive regulations for ADUs in the region, probably in the state. It's highly onerous. And so there's plenty of room for change. And so we're working on that. And we've gone through some of the thinking around that and the conversations we've had. So Amy has done a fair amount of research, not just on what we have and what we'd want to do, but to try to juxtapose that with what other towns are doing and what their experience has been. And I'll turn it over to her to describe more of that in a sec. The second area we're looking at is doing a general review of all of the codes in Old Lyme, because even if you just do a word search on affordable housing pops up in multiple places in our zoning regulations and our ordinances. So we want to understand what we have on the books right now, and whether it's good or bad. And there may be things in there, for example, in the books right now regarding open space. So you probably saw some of the discussion around what happened with the Neck Road properties that, and some of the other properties on Mount Creek recently, that when a development goes in, there's a requirement that a portion of the space is set aside as open space, or in lieu of that, a cash payment is made to the Open Space Commission, to the Open Space Fund, in lieu of actually setting aside open space. Or what doesn't get discussed, what's been discussed a lot is whether or not there should be actual space set aside, or that there is an in-kind cash contribution made to the Open Space Fund. But there is a third tier of that says the open space set-aside requirement can be waived by putting some affordable housing in.
Ooh.
So I haven't seen that come up in conversation, but there may be some opportunities to raise awareness about that. And I don't know if there are any other incentives in the code, but Amy and I are going to just do a word search, go through it, and try and understand everything that we currently have on the books.
Well, that would mix in nicely with what we were just talking about as far as, changing some of the zoning.
Yep.
regulations.
Yep. So what do we want? We should probably frame that discussion in the context of what do we got.
Yeah.
And then the third area, which is actually coming up already in some of the work Amy is doing, is incentives.
Mm-hmm.
So multiple towns have set up incentive overlays and such. So those are the three areas we're working in, and to come up with some sort of proposal for or some thinking around how do we approach incentives, which are kind of a thorny area. But okay, Amy, I'm done talking to you.
No, wait a minute. I've just got some new notes. Westbrook, effective the 20th of January, has a new accessory apartment ordinance, and with design standards that are very specific, which I thought was useful. Some of the others I'm not sure had all the detail on design standards, which they put in, which I think gives some assurance, or would give some assurance here as to what is this going to ruin our neighborhood and all of that. So I can send this as a document to you guys. Essex has been considering incentive zoning districts, and I'm not sure, I didn't reach back to them, or I couldn't reach Carrie Duquesne today to see if they'd actually passed that. But they did have some kind of incentive housing zoning as early as 2010. So that would be a good one to maybe pull some common threads from.
Is it similar to Old Saybrook's?
Old Saybrook's. That should definitely be in here. Yeah. Oh, they've had an incentive housing zone, which is an overlay zone. And I'm sorry. Oh, Old Saybrook. They want to increase their ADUs by 20% between 2021 and 2026, and they want to do more to approach ADUs as a concept, because a lot of people just have a misunderstanding about that, how it would look in effect in the neighborhood, that type of thing. They want currently they have 5 income limited ADUs, but they want to increase that, obviously. They want to develop incentives for home ownership in Old Saybrook, public awareness of Old Saybrook's housing efforts. I think they felt that that would make it easy to sort of bury or nestle the ADU concept within that. And they want to ID a property in Old Saybrook for a public-private affordable housing partnership. I don't know how far that's gone, but we'll follow up on that. Let's see. In Westbrook, I will send you copies of this because it's fairly well fleshed out. Essex is fairly well, they've already done some affordable housing in buildings, small apartment buildings as a set aside, and they seem to be much more comfortable and further along.
That's like over their retail?
Yeah.
Main Street, yeah.
And there's also,
Spencer's Corners project was a...
Yeah.
But I'm I was thinking further down Main Street on Main Street.
Main Street. Yeah, and I've driven down there. I don't see that there's that many multi-story buildings, but they're saying they'd love to see multi.
I know somebody lives in that church, though, so that's a primo space.
Whoa.
Probably not affordable though.
And the Westbrook one, Peter Gillespie's been very good about sharing information on this. Their design standards are very explicit, so I should get this to you.
And from the design standards, they're like talking about so it has to have X number of bathrooms.
Minimum floor area.
The floor, okay.
Yeah. And they have also a maximum gross floor area of is 1,000 square feet.
Okay.
But I think those sorts of numbers being used elsewhere where they've thought it out, it would really help consideration here going, well, in the context of what our buildings look like.
My whole house is 780 square feet, so.
1,000 square feet is generous, yeah.
No, but I think is that something? Do you guys think? I mean, so I don't know anybody around here except for my 3 people that have room to have a garage, room over garage apartment or basement apartment with no egress, but things like that. But are those the kind of considerations that you're finding that, say, if a single person wants to move into a smaller unit like that, 1,000 square feet or whatever, you would want obviously your own entry exit, you'd want the proper egress for fire, you'd want a bathroom, those kinds of things. Is it pretty much standard?
It is pretty much standard.
Not like we're talking about, when you say details, it's not like, or design, it's not like...
No, details you want to make sure there's a parking space.
The kind of areas we want to push on are, one is actually having it be an allowed use, a permitted use.
Right.
Or even, in some areas, even have it be a special permit. So there's just the whole question of whether or not it's even possible to do it. So that's one area that we need to work on in Old Lyme.
And what the homeowner has to go through to do that.
Right.
To get it permitted.
The other is things like how many parking spaces, so it can be kind of onerous if you have to have 2 parking spaces.
Handicapped or not handicapped.
And
accessible.
So most of the regulations I've seen do have some guidance on the maximum square foot as a percentage of the original dwelling and on its own. And so there's reasonable things you can do, but even to get to that point, it's got to be permissible.
Right.
So,
we don't have to mandate that it be handicap, wheelchair accessible, ADA compliant, blah blah blah. That doesn't have to come into the picture.
There's probably federal regulations that will cover that.
Yeah, I'm sure there are, but in Old Lyme,
but
for the majority of the properties, the ADA compliance doesn't come into play.
Correct.
Really?
I'm just looking at the one that I have in front of me.
That would be a nightmare.
Mayor.
That might be above those in general building codes.
If we get like a grant from
Yeah.
federal, or if we get money from
That-
somebody, it would be tied to that maybe.
That could be a constraint.
But even that's not a showstopper. I mean, we got some. If you look at the ADU regulations in most of the towns in the valley, they're a page,
Yeah.
and ours
Okay.
are multiple pages with cascading levels of restrictions, and yeah, it's,
Gotcha, okay.
Years ago, before, across the street from the Lime Academy, before those apartments were built, we had so many people that had artists, students staying with them. A lot of them had professors year after year.
Right.
There's a lot of
And the
hidden
beach
little,
towns,
really
yeah.
good accessory apartments. And when we go to list houses, they'd say, I have this apartment, and we'd be like, we can't advertise it as a apartment.
Right.
And, even though, like you said, they were collecting rent under the table and things like that, but I think there's more of these dwellings than
and there's some genuine concerns. For example, with the R10 and the R15 zones, if they start trying to double up in those, it's going to present a parking problem there. So that, there's some, but I think there's within our regulations, based on the conversations we had with at least Dan Beret, the former land use officer, and Paul, I think
Okay.
we got a lot of room
I think John
to
might
work.
have wanted, John, did you want to say something?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay, sorry.
So we're gonna keep on with this.
It's getting rapidly cooler in here.
So, sort of two tracks. One is working within our line, bottom up, and then outside inside out and outside in.
Good.
What's going on? So we get ideas and context from what's going on across the region and the state. So also within the broad topic of policy and regulatory, the legislative session is firing up. And I had sent a bunch of articles which were redundant, but just to recap some of that. Desegregate Connecticut and the Open Communities Alliance is back this year with the fair share concept and with transit-oriented development. So they're gonna bring that forward again. It didn't make it out of committee last time. The Council of Small Towns and RiverCog have come out with skepticism about this. The way it's worded, I believe, it would require yet another plan, and the state would have to go back and do an assessment, and there's a lot going on.
Ridiculous than 830G, I think.
So it's we'll see where it goes. And transit-oriented development is out there too. One interesting.
Actually, I met the lobbyist from that. From Desegregate Connecticut, one of the gentlemen who's actually helping head up the lobby for the affordable housing near train stations, bus stations, stuff like that.
Huh.
It's quite an interesting guy. He's a reservist that was over at Stone Ridge for the weekend or summer week, and he ran into him at waiting for a table at Spice Club, and talked to him for about a half an hour. Very interesting guy.
Wow. I was going to say rustic. I was betting you were at the rustic, but that's all right.
Now Spice Club.
That's so cool. No, but the so what did he like? Did he have a role in this, or
Any
did he have-
revelations?
Yeah, he's actually the head lobbyist for it, as he calls himself, the underpaid lobbyist. But there's a huge charge with us, and they're trying to. They're mobilizing a lot of funds for it this year to try to make it happen. But like towns like Old Lyme, they would not even consider, because there's no transportation hubs. So they're looking for areas of transportation hub so they can build close so that people can actually walk and thrive, having an alternate source of transportation to owning cars and things
Although,
like that.
John, in one of the articles I read, they were initially focused on where there is a real well-established transportation hub, but they were also looking to any town that had a bus line, and Old Lyme was one of the towns that was specifically cited, and areas along the shoreline where we have the little 9 towns green and white transit bus that goes by, and they just built the bus stop down by the Best Way down there by the church on Shore Road. So even though I don't think it's in their first round of priorities,
no, it's not. It's definitely not in the first round. The first round was density. In other words, so that they can do a larger project and help more people. They're looking at least that's what he was kind of alluding to or saying.
Yep.
But I did give him a business card and told him to reach out to me.
So that's basically reprising some of the activity from last year. Another one that's interesting, and I sent this along, and this is actually coming from the other side of the aisle, is a proposal to actually count naturally occurring affordable housing, NOAH, as part of the housing stock, in addition to the stock that is federally funded or has a USDA or a chattel mortgage or is deed restricted, which would, based on the housing study that was done as part of our plan, check me on this, Laura, I don't know if you have that at the top of your head, but it's about 200 units
I don't know.
of naturally occurring affordable, if I remember correctly.
I think that's right.
So that would be a significant, and you know what, I can see upside and downside of this. The upside is I think it presents a more accurate assessment of what the stock is in a town that is affordable for a given AMI level.
Yeah.
The downside is that it's less stable because, as we've seen, as the market fluctuates, the line moves on what prices are constitute affordable, and the housing, a home that might have been affordable in 2023, if the market gets hot, could be not affordable in 2024. So it's less, but it's trackable.
Yeah, well, and to me, it's trackable, so we track it, so it's a government regulation because of 830G, so like we're just chasing tails, basically. So we're doing it because the government prescribes this like archaic process for doing it, and we're falling into that trap by doing it. So I would say, with that, we'll just go on and do what we're doing.
Great summary.
I'm not sure it would change our approach, which is we're not in a position, our needs are so broad and so deep that
we have 16.
we don't need to be driven by any kind of quota, but just from a sort of an academic standpoint, to me at least, it makes sense.
Throw it out there at a press conference.
And Bill communicated to me in the prep for the meeting, he thought it made sense, just so everything's on the table and you get an accurate view of what the town,
than the government requires.
But, you know, if there's, I think it's within our purview to weigh in on these things.
Yeah.
So if
we could ever influence changing.
But part of our charter is to be up on these things and to make recommendations to town.
No, I'm not. We should definitely keep track of it, but, you know, I don't think reporting on it is anything. It's not going to get us anywhere.
I think your cynicism is well founded.
We have 260.
Yeah. It's not going to change what we do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think that's good. I think this progress on ADUs might be the first thing that we do for the first half of the year that goes. You know, McCulloch and the ADUs might be our target.
That's on the front burner.
To put on the front. And then if we can get this funding, we'll pursue this funding with the Yes in Our Backyard program and see if we could get through some of that. Anthony and I will take that on. And Mike Santoro from the state was super helpful as far as providing us guidance on a lot of things. But so I think we have some good connections there if we need to use them for all these things, not just funding. Good advice.
Also on the topic of zoning change, I'll digress just a little bit, but I'm sitting on the Shoreline Gateway Committee, and so they're looking downstream at the potential for zoning changes as well. And at tomorrow night's meeting, they're going to have Eric Knapp, who's the new land use coordinator, and Paul Orzell, who's also on the committee, but he's going to step out of role and appear there as chair of the zoning commission, and Harold Thompson from the planning commission. And one of the questions that I suggested that they're going to address for the Gateway Committee is relevant to us, which is, are there any lessons learned from the Halls Road and the Lime Street about the process and how to approach these kinds of significant zoning change that the committee should be aware of and take into consideration, and I will take careful notes on that because it'll apply to us as well.
You know, the HRSC has been going on for so long, I think people have forgotten basically what they did initially 5 years ago, which was, you know, they had models of Halls Road and things like that set up from a Yale-y kind of consultant stuff, and I think it was premature as far as, you know, picking out what kind of benches we want on decided that we're going to do anything on Hall Street. So you know, I think this town, to me, kind of like, you know, I got to bring them along the whole way,
right,
and, you know, make them a part of it, not something on them, you know, and then go back 5 years later and try to figure out, do we have sidewalks? So I think it would be better if we kind of kept them apprised of everything from day one, and just like I think John and Karen have always espoused, like make it more of a community building thing versus
not just show up with
doing it to you
with a fully baked proposal and ask them to vote on it. I don't think that would go well.
Yeah, so if we can get their input, you know, sooner rather than later on all these things, I think that would be the best way to go.
And that is the plan. Okay, we took a lot of bandwidth on that one. Let's go to development opportunities.
John has.
Yeah, we have a little bit of news on that. Development opportunities. Mark Dybel, I understand he was signing a contract. He's made it. They're moving forward. I had a call into him today. Haven't heard back. Next meeting, I'll give you guys all the details. But project is moving forward. As far as Tom Larson, I haven't had a chance to contact him yet, but I will prior to the next meeting. And those are the two big ones for us. But it's kind of interesting that Mark was able to figure out the septic and the water and everything over there to move to put it into to move forward on that.
Now, how many total apartments was that, John?
I think it was 267. I've heard a number of numbers along the way, but that's why I'll get a hold of Mark. I had got a call into him today, and Mark and I weren't connecting, so I'll catch him, you know, sometime later this week, and I'll shoot it out to the Affordable Housing with all the details.
We want to be specific about what units he's using too, because I know that at one point it changed from units to bedrooms when the septic capacity became the limiting.
Yeah, that's actually there was a change for that reason, because they did acquire, I believe, another 16 acres in order to accommodate the septic. So it's definitely bedroom driven. So I'll get this particulars to Mark, because, as I said, it's moved, you know, from possibly being able to do where they've got a plan and then they've got an engineer who signed off on the system. So that's, you know, a big part of it, and he's got a developer who's going to develop it. So
I think Tom will be interesting too. You know, that may be something we can actually help with, connecting the dots.
Exactly.
And it'll be a learning experience for us too.
Yeah, and the nice thing is it's a small town, so, you know, between our committee we could probably...
That also intersects with the Gateway Committee, because that parcel is in a C30 that's in the tract that's under consideration by the Gateway Committee. And Tom's aware of that, so.
Oh, interesting. Nice.
It'd be interesting to see that done as sort of the spearhead, if you will, for
Right,
everything
so,
else, because everything else will be like, shh. That'll be like the focus of all the conversation.
so if that,
Especially if it's 260 units.
but
Yeah,
the Larson thing could be almost a little case study for the Gateway Commission, the Gateway Committee, too, so that would be really interesting.
Yeah. Oh, more power to him. I'm glad he got the permits.
And just in general, I think this is an area where maybe we can make some inroads going forward. I mean, we're done with our planning cycle for right now. So, we have McCulloch, but that's, that was inherited and it's got a lot of restrictions on it. That's got almost an ordained path that's going to go down. But it would be nice to have some additional irons in the fire for projects that we could promote or try to connect some dots and get a partner for the town that would take over some of the town-owned property or actually, through our action, being a catalyst, bring together a project that might not have happened otherwise and put together the availability of some land, some funding, partner, and actually cause the number to go up.
Yeah. We see stuff like on Button Ball where they're, selling off that large acreage on Button Ball. There's opportunity there for X%, let's just say 3 or 4, out of whatever they're going to build there, 9 or 10 homes there. I mean, but we don't have it in our, regulations or whatever that has to be that way. So, you could build 100 beach farms in Old Lyme and none of them are affordable. And, so until you get the incentives, like you were saying, incentivize the developers to actually, build something that is more mundane, less 4-bedroom, 3.5 bathroom, style stuff, they could build it affordable and we could use it as affordable, but if they continue to build 5-6 bedroom houses, 6,000 feet, we're not going to be able to do anything. So it's something I think that's a good conversation for zoning and planning and whatever. If we really want to move the needle on it, they have to be involved at the beginning.
Yeah.
And we can't do it by these 7 people that we have on this committee. We have to get them.
Certainly not. But the
it's
connecting is
important.
not something we can do.
Yeah.
It's going to take time to get people over to understand affordable isn't poor. So they're working people, they're good people, and it's changing the perception, which we've tried to do with the committee.
But you think about it, if we can make some progress on the ADU regulations, if we can raise awareness that, I don't know how many more big developments are going to go in that are going to require open space, but if we can raise awareness that developers can build some affordable housing in lieu of the open space requirement or the funding, and we can look at some of the town properties and maybe put something together, and we have a partner network like Habitat Hope, some of the others that are out there,
Yeah.
maybe we
And
can start
even
to...
developers, I know that the mortgage developers is such a rich industry that they are now getting on the bandwagon of, affordability. So it's not out of their mindset to say, okay, so I'm like KB Homes, I can build, a couple affordable for every 8, unaffordables that I build. I don't know what you call them, unaffordable. Market rate ones that I build. They can throw in a couple of...
Land is so scarce. I mean, I've known
Sewer and water in our town.
and sewer and water. So between that and then all the trust land, and I have developers that said, I would love to build an Old Lyme, but I've scoured Town Hall, I've scoured maps, and there's just very little land that's not wet or that needs well and septic or land trust, land conservation land. It's really
tight.
It's really in short supply.
And that goes back to our to the capacity study we did as part of our plan, where under ideal conditions, with more restrictions yet, I think the number that came out was there's maybe room for 400 more homes in the town under the current.
But even that project Mark Diebolt's doing, it's really bony. It's a horrible piece of property.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's taken 20 years to put it together to make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's got perseverance, that's for sure.
And here's
Yes,
another
it
note
does.
on that. I was just reading some of the proceedings from what's going on with the sewer project. And I read I don't know if this is accurate or not, but it's worth chasing down. This gets to the conversation I had, Jen. Apparently the state of Connecticut has adopted some more advanced technology for on-site septic that
Yeah, the nitrogen-based septics that are going in now on a lot of the island
Yep.
communities or whatever have become more of a standard now than pump stations. So the more effluent they can consume on the site, then the better, and they
Right.
don't have to consume resources sending it to somewhere else, and then, you know, by the archaic way that it's been done for 100 years.
But what I read was that, and this was in the context of the sewer project, that DEEP has actually authorized some of those. And I know for a time that they were not.
Down at the beach areas, for example,
Yeah.
I would think.
Yeah, that was the context for it. So
Yeah.
I just saw a blurb, and
They're pushing for it. It
Yeah.
hasn't.
it's worth understanding
yet, but
what's happened at DEEP
yeah.
in the area of more compact, more efficient on-site
Yeah.
waste treatment,
My
because that's an enabler.
My brother worked on an oil rig up in the Gulf of Mexico 25 years ago, and they had a self-sufficient waste system where they drank the water that came out of their septic shit. So, and that was 25 years ago.
Take that, space
So,
station.
yeah, and they lived there for 6 months out of the year on their own wastewater. So, I know it can be done. Yeah, just couldn't be done in Soundview.
Okay, so anything else from development opportunities?
Not right now. More to come.
Yeah, I'll be glad to see Mark go through with that. That was an awesome project.
I mean, if that goes through, I mean, that could increase our...
Gives us about 80.
Yeah, that could nearly double our inventory, and in the market rate one, serve a big gap in the market, which is rental.
Even the market rate ones, yeah. I know the
'Cause they're gonna be small.
ones in Waterford are so expensive. The ones behind Costco on that, they are like
Well,
they call them
there's-
luxury apartments. They're almost $1,000.
Well, there's Waterford Woods it's going in. They're considerably less expensive. They're still not super cheap, but they're $1,750 or $1,850.
For one bedroom.
It's on 156.
Yeah.
East Line, Gateway Commons, those, are pricey.
Yeah.
Essex,
Yeah,
The ones by the
By
police
the-
station?
the old movie, Essex Junction.
Oh, back down there, yeah. But those ones that were in between East Lyme and Old Lyme, where the police station is now, the East Lyme police station is. Those
Yep.
were great, and, yeah,
well, that's both market and affordable.
John, on those it was mixed, but I think the ratio was pretty high for the affordable.
It was very
It was not
much
at 30%. It was
yeah.
more like
No, it was 60%.
60.
Affordable, yeah.
Yeah.
Karen went and looked
Yeah,
at
it was
them.
definitely higher.
Yeah, but they're very nice. Well, leasing apartments, and they're all completely sold out.
Yep.
Yes.
Quickly.
They're
The market sold out very quickly, I remember, because that sold out first, and then they've actually been able to backfill with the affordable part, and that was the harder for them to fill.
Well, I think that's what kind of Old Lyme is trying to avoid, right? Because, you go through Waterford or East Lyme and you see project after project after project, being built, whether it be like where the Bridal, area is, those are all
yeah,
apartments
up
up that hill.
Mhm.
The ones by the police station, then you've got the HEPA apartments, and then
Yeah.
you've got the senior housing across the street from that. So, you kind of like that's their niche. They're going for that. So it's no kids in school, lots of seniors paying taxes,
they're
that
on the
kind
sewer
of
line.
thing, and not, yeah. And so we don't have that kind of like niche. Waterford's all commercial on this side of 95, housing on that side of 95, and we don't have that. And so we don't really have a thing, you know? We just have old colonial houses. And so
we have to,
we
work with what we got.
need a thing, yeah. So we have to lay low on it and do what we can with what we have. So nobody wants that, probably, in Old Lyme. I think the sidewalks on Halls Road are enough to create a stir.
Okay. So, that brings us to other business. I have none. Does anybody have anything to bring forward?
I have none.
All right then. Upcoming meetings. Our next one is on my calendar.
St. Patty's Day?
Yeah, I thought March 15th.
March 15th, yeah. Oh yeah, it's 28 days. It's 4 weeks. It's a 4-week month, so it'll be the same date next month. Yep.
And we're still looking for an alternate, right?
We are still looking for an alternate.
Everybody knows.
And the alternate position, if it becomes attractive to someone, is only through January of 24. So it's a short-term one. So if somebody wants to kind of
Except.
test the waters for a relatively
Great.
short term.
Trial run.
And then get roped in
Select to learn,
on a
yes.
longer-term basis.
Yeah,
So if you have any names,
Yeah.
please forward them to me. It's already, the vacancy is already up on the new website.
The vacancy was created by Karen?
Correct.
Vacancy was,
well, sort
it
of.
was created by, so Karen's term expired. And she did not, and Amy was in that, so it's Amy's former alternate
It's. Oh,
slot.
Yeah.
So Amy was appointed to take the 3-year term that Karen didn't re-up on, which left the balance of Amy's alternate term, which is January 24th. So that's left as an opening. Similar to what happened with Anthony. So Anthony just started last year, but his term expired this January, and now he's re-up for a full 3. So yeah, if you have anyone who you think might be interested, it's fine to recruit. We don't have anybody in the hopper right now, and we can use the help
When do you need names by?
anytime.
Anytime.
Okay, so March 15th coming up. We'll have more updates. Hopefully have something more definitive on the readout from the attorneys on moving forward on McCulloch. And actually, we could have that sooner, in which case I'll just let folks know maybe special meetings to make any decisions. I'll call that. I don't want to waste a minute on that one.
And we could get the RFP out.
Or Q, whatever.
PQ, PQZ.
Whatever's recommended, whatever we have to do. Okay. Then, if there's nothing else, I will look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I think Amy got in first. Who's going to second?
I'll second it.
None. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the
Have a good night.
When's the cold coming back?